Hello and welcome to this session in which we will discuss vulnerability management. This is a security strategy that focuses on prevention, on preventing attacks by addressing weaknesses, vulnerability in information technology before. When you're trying to prevent, part of preventing is doing something before an attack takes place by exploiting the weaknesses in the system. So before that weaknesses is taken advantage of, you try to stop the attack. This proactive approach is a crucial component in maintaining computer and network security as well as managing IT risks more broadly. Simply put, if we want to simplify, it means you don't wait until something happens, you look for trouble. You look for trouble, you try to predict where the trouble is coming from, and you will try to fix it. So taking a proactive steps to find and fix security gaps in your IT system. Think about putting yourself in the shoes of the criminal. Say, where would the criminal look for vulnerabilities in my system, weaknesses? Fix those before they attack you. By continuously monitoring new vulnerabilities, conducting regular scans to detect them and address them as they are found, organization can reduce the risk of security breaches and protect their physical as well as their digital asset from security breaches. And this is what we will discuss in this session. Basically, what are some tools that we can use or framework in this vulnerability management? Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. At the core, this process is to identify, categorize, and address, as well as resolving security weaknesses before someone takes advantage of those weaknesses. So organizations implement a process to protect their systems and data from potential harms. What are some key activities? Well, first you want to detect and monitor any activities or any weakness. Organization keep a constant watch for changes in their IT environment that might introduce new weaknesses or make the system vulnerable to recent threats. This step often involves using tools, and we're going to see what these tools are, procedures to monitor system configuration for any changes that could lead to those vulnerabilities. Then you scan, just basically systematic examination of an IT environment for the purpose of uncovering security weaknesses. You're looking for weaknesses. You're saying, I'm not perfect, I have weaknesses. Let me find those weaknesses and fix them before someone else does. So the organization typically perform these scans after making significant changes to their system or at regular intervals. Obviously, if you make any changes to the system, it's more critical because the changes could lead to vulnerabilities without you knowing. So the goal is to identify any weaknesses or misconfiguration, especially when you have changes to the system that could lead to an attack. Then you remediate. Once those weaknesses are identified, the organization must act swiftly, quickly to address these issues. Remediation can take various forms, from applying software patches to updating configuration, with the aim of what? Eliminating the identified weakness or reducing their potential impact. Now, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework does give you a valuable guide for managing and reducing cybersecurity risk, including vulnerabilities. Well, they're going to give you steps that you follow. It outline a structured approach through 5 key functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And if you remember, we covered those steps much more in detail. We had a lecture about identify, a lecture about protect, detect, respond, and recover. There are many steps, but here we're going to go over them quickly just as a review as part of a response. So the first thing you do is you identify the assets that are involved. The first step is recognizing the various resources, which is identify your assets, system, data, any assets, personnel that could be potential target for cybersecurity threat. Then you apply the CSF framework, an organization can better understand its operational environment, the value of its asset, and the security policies regarding these assets. So we have to understand what's the importance of these assets to us. For example, a company might use the identified function to do what? To catalog all the computer system and software, assess which data is most sensitive, and determine how current policies protect these data. So before you can protect something, you have to know what you have. List your assets, identify them. The next thing you do is you protect them. So once the assets are identified, then the next step is to establish defensive to secure them. And this involves setting up access controls to ensure only authorized individual can access certain data. Maybe we find out that certain data are given access to individual they're not supposed to. Well, let's take this access out. We want to secure physical and digital asset because they were not secured. Train employees to be aware of cybersecurity threat. For example, we might implement a multi-factor authentication for accessing sensitive data. For what purpose? Is to increase the protection to reduce the risk of unauthorized access. This is the protect. Once again, as I mentioned, we have more detailed about this CSF framework. Detect. The detect functions focus on identifying cybersecurity event in a timely manner. You identified your asset, you try to protect them, then you try to detect any attack. This could include monitoring for unusual activity that might indicate a security breach. Here you would conduct regular scans to find any vulnerabilities and ensure that the measures in place to protect the organization asset are functioning as intended. You just say, okay, here are the weaknesses. I believe I created some sort of a defensive mechanism. Is it working as intended? For example, the detection in action is the use of intrusion detection system that alert the security team of potential attacks as they happen, allowing for a quick identification of the threat. Is it working as expected? If it alerts us, great, we respond. When the vulnerability or the security incident is detected, now we have a response function on how the organization address the issue. Basically, we train ourselves as much as possible. This involves analyzing the weakness or the breach to understand its impact, then taking steps to contain and mitigate the threat and communicate the incident and response to any relevant stakeholders. For example, if the software vulnerability is detected, the response might include applying a patch from the vendor to just kind of close that gap, isolating affected systems so they don't infect other systems, and informing any users that were affected by the breach and taking action. Then what we do after we respond, we try to recover. The final function aims to restore any services or capabilities that were impaired due to the cybersecurity event and to strengthen them so it doesn't happen again against future incidents. Activities under this function might include executing a recovery plan to bring the affected system back online, making improvement to prevent similar weaknesses, and communicating recovery effort to internal stakeholders. This is part of our communicating within the organization to create an awareness culture about our cybersecurity threat. An example here could be after a ransom attack, the organization will restore the data from the backup, close the security gap that was exploited by the attacker, and update the company-wide policies to better protect against future ransom, and tell the users, which is our stakeholders, what happened and how things should be protected. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. A manufacturing company wants to apply the NIST Cybersecurity Framework to its operation. Which activity best aligns with the protect function of the CSF, of the Cybersecurity Framework? We're looking for the protect function. Conduct regular penetration testing on the industrial control system. Is this part of the protect function? Well, I would say A, which is a good thing to do, but it's part of the detection. When you penetrate, you won't try to detect if something is wrong. So it's not protection. A is out. Implementing access control measures for their production system. Access control. Why do you have access control? For protection. I would say B is a good answer choice, but let's wait to see what C and D looks like. C, reviewing the impact of a recent cyber attack on production. Well, it already happened. The attack already happened. So we're not really protecting anything. What would that be? That would be part of the respond. So C is not the correct choice. D, restoring services from backup after a ransom attack. Well, what we are doing here is we are recovering from the attack. We're not protecting. B is out. So as we expected, B is the correct answer. It's part of the protect function of the CSF framework. What should you do now? You want to go to Farhat lectures, look at additional MCQs. That's going to help you if you're studying for your CPA exam, accounting courses, professional certification, finance courses. Good luck, study hard, and of course, stay safe.